As part of our series of conversations with leading experts and specialists across all the different sectors that MHA, UK lead member firm of Baker Tilly International, operate in, I'm delighted to introduce our next conversation. And I am today joined by Sarah Calcutt, a non-executive board member of Covent Garden Market Authority and the Rural Payments Agency, and also a fifth-generation farmer, having farmed in the Garden of England, the county of Kent, for over 200 years. Sarah, a very good morning and welcome to our headquarters here in London at MHA. And we've invited you here today to talk about probably one of the most topical issues facing Great Britain and other countries in the world around the global food supply system, and the topic that is on everybody's minds at the moment, which is food security, not least because of the geopolitical shocks around Ukraine from a number of years ago, which is still continuing, but also with Iran and more recently the Straits of Hormuz crisis. And I read from the Federation of Food and Drink that food price inflation that was originally planned to be 3% in 2026 is now targeted potentially to be over 9%, which drags back to issues from a number of years ago, and that the inputs and concentrates and the whole range of challenges that food businesses have to deal with are not only increasing, but are exploding, I think it's fair to say, in terms of pricing. So I'd like to kind of get your insights and talk to you through, with your huge experience in the industry over many years, about what these pressures are doing to the people on the ground, people you deal with on a day-to-day basis in terms of regulators and the government, and also your own personal experience being a fifth-generation farming family. So if we could start really, let's talk about the money. Pressures. Talk to me about the pressure right now.
So difficult. So you have at either end of the scale, you've got a massive challenge right now. So you've got an increasing proportion of the population who cannot afford food. So not even just a healthy diet, which we should all be feeding our children, feeding ourselves. We're talking about any food. So you've got a rising proportion of the population. I think it was 6 million people are going to have a day this week where there is no food in their household, which means that the other 6 days of the week, there won't be enough food in their household. Now, this is despite the two biggest redistributors joining together, so the Felix Product and Fair Share. So those two coming together, both of them are larger than they've ever been. You look at organisations like City Harvest that focuses on the needs of Londoners. They are larger than they've ever been. They're sharing more food than they've ever shared. And yet the proportion of food insecure households is still rising. It was at its highest in January 23, but we're already seeing 0.5% increase each quarter as we go on now. So we're at over 15% of all households in the UK haven't got enough food. Now,
that's 10%, isn't it? I mean, 6 million versus 60 million people.
You've got 15% of all households.
Wow.
If you're a single parent family, though, that'll double. You've got a huge challenge. And of course, access to food means the cheapest possible food. You know, if you're on universal credit, it's an incredibly small budget. And it means that you're not sourcing good food. So then, of course, adding to the obesity challenges, we're adding to the health service bill. At the other end of the scale, you've got farmers everywhere who are not turning a profit. They have no capital to invest in the future. I come where I farm. Historically, we've been a fruit farm. I look at our neighbours and they can't afford to replant orchards. So they're reducing the national orchard. If you speak to the amazing Ali Kappa and British Apples and Pears, volume is rising because of the change in varieties and the production techniques, but they're still not making profit. So you've got a food industry that is struggling. We're not an attractive marketplace. It's going to be more expensive to get food here because of rising fuel prices. And you have a population that actually can't afford what's available.
And on that piece around cost of replanting, regrowth, development of existing assets, I think a third of all fertiliser goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And we've got a number of clients in this industry where they've just got their heads down trying to navigate this, because obviously they have to then manage and pass those costs on. They've got to make a margin themselves. What is that doing then to literally the day-to-day management of planting, harvesting, management of your crops at the moment for the food industry?
It's causing rapid change and a redrawing of budgets and future production scheduling, because of course it's not going to just affect this season. So you've got a blend this year of those that have forward purchased their fertiliser, and let's not forget most of it was onshore before all the issues in the Far East started. But the problem is now that you've got a forecast with the rise in the cost of oil, all the inputs that go into fertiliser, the cost of shipping it around the world, because nobody in the UK is making any fertiliser in the world anymore. It's all imported. So it's not just this year's crop we're talking about, because you won't be able to, you can't future purchase fertiliser right now, and nobody would, because we don't know what it's going to cost when it arrives on your farm.
And would they normally do that at this time?
So you know what you're using now, and it will start to inform what your ordering will be for the following year, because it depends on your rotation, it depends on the crops you're planting, what stage your orchard is at. It will vary from year to year. The technology now around micro soil analysis, so you're looking at all the fractions of different fertiliser inputs rather than just putting in a compound. That's changing the nature of fertiliser management. But it still doesn't mean that someone's got security in knowing what they're going to pay for it.
So what does that mean for business now? What should they be doing now? Bearing in mind, you're saying that there is limited funds, unless you're a big global major or you're a big, I mean, even the PLCs are finding margins challenging at the minute. I've seen some of that from some other work we're doing. But what should businesses be doing at the minute? They can't all just jump into spending hundreds of thousands of pounds into microbiologic analysis and so forth.
But everybody is looking at they're looking at your accounts, you're looking at your productivity. So one of the companies I'm involved with is Outfield. Now, their customers use their systems for analysing the canopy density, the blossom mapping, and the crop estimates, because then as far forward as possible, you can give a good estimate to your customer. You can make a decision on whether or not to grow that orchard, or whether to pick that orchard or do the expensive actions on it. And that will happen across farming more and more and more, where you've got a marginal return, or you have an opportunity to, there's potential to make a loss on something. People will make a decision not to grow it because the inputs will be too high and the returns are too low. So we're going to see some instability within some commodity crops, which will be harder to grow. You've got lots of things that we're doing less of, like oilseed rape now, because of challenges around neonics. But you've got real problems coming down the track, and it isn't just this year, it will be future years as well, because income does not match the expenditure going forward.
So it's actually, people are immediately thinking about it currently now, but actually it's going to be the impact on next year and the year after because of the planning cycles.
Yeah, and it will push diversification, the identification of different income streams, different ways to use your land. If you look at the new land use framework, that is really interesting in terms of how the research, and an amazing amount of work has gone into the production of that document. But if you look at how that has been put together and the priorities around community, around food, around accommodation, it's worth a read. It's really nicely written. It is really clear to understand as well. But actually, it does show that there's a real challenge and concern in government around food sustainability.
I read today that, or certainly over the last couple of weeks since the crisis began, that the cost of red diesel has gone from circa 60 pence to pushing 109, 110 pence per litre. And do you think that, irrespective of so I know it's obviously linked to the price of the barrel, but do you think that this is going to start making the farming industry and the food chain change the way they use oil and hydrocarbon-based products, or is it still too early? They're just going to have to deal with it for now?
Unfortunately, right now, what are the alternatives? So there are there are electric tractors, but they're very, very expensive. If you haven't made a profit margin in the last 6 years, you're not going to be buying an electric tractor in a hurry, are you? And you won't be able to afford, much investment in new equipment. I mean, there's a fund that sits within the RPA that can be accessed around agricultural technology. That's got a really good range. So there's a little chance of some shared investment from that way. It's a match funded piece, 40 or 50%.
Yeah,
that will help a wee bit. But actually what you're looking at now is this awful perfect storm where you don't have the capital to change your systems to start reducing your costs. So you're going to look again at reduction of operations or management of operations And certainly rationalisation of sites. One of the companies I'm involved in, they're looking at their outlying pieces of land and actually what it's costing them in terms of time and diesel and manpower to get over there. And this outlying patch of maybe only 15 acres, not going to do that anymore. So that tendency has come to an end. And so the concentration now on a smaller, more consolidated area and make that more productive is working for them.
So the consolidation opportunity is almost like the only opportunity businesses have at the moment. Yeah, we're seeing that. And also as well, rising insurance premiums as a result of the risk.
Yep, right the way across the piece, there's an increase in, I can't think of anything to do with farming where the cost hasn't gone up.
I think that on that point, I think all businesses that both MHA work with and the wider Baker Tilly Global Network, we are always here to help and talk about some of the challenges that Sarah just alluded to, but also as well from a global and more wider geopolitical perspective. We're seeing some significant shifts both from some of the work we're doing at the FTSE 100 level and FTSE 250 level, but also as well with our work with regulators and governments. So Sarah, thank you for your time, and please do watch, and also please do look out for our next in a series looking at the challenges to do with food security and the geopolitical shocks coming out of what is quite a difficult time for many businesses at the moment. And if you would like to learn more, please do contact us through www.mha.co.uk. Thank you very much.